What's up everybody, Derek here with the Bass Factory, and today we're going to be talking about the three main types of fishing line that are used out there today. We've got monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braided lines. I'm going to be talking about what they're made of, their characteristics, their prices, and what lures I like to use with these lines. Okay, monofilament. Monofilament is basically melted down, and it's a bunch of different polymers that are pushed through a little bitty hole. As that hole size increases, you get your different pound tests, and as it goes through that hole, it's basically spooled up onto a reel spool that is sold to you at the store. And that's the same way that fluorocarbon is made, just with different polymers. Monofilament stretches and it floats, and it's not invisible to a fish like fluorocarbon is. Monofilament, I used to use it all the time back in the day, especially when I was using those $50 combos. I would go get a $50 combo from Walmart, and I would also buy that monofilament and spool it up. I would go bank fishing, river fishing, creek fishing. I'd be basically beating the bank, and I would catch fish with this line. But as the years go by, I learned that it was more specific to be using monofilament in certain ways. So monofilament is a great way to get out there and get on the water, and it's also cheap. So that's another benefit if you're wanting to use monofilament. Fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon is made from natural and synthetic polymers into different sizes. It's denser, which means it's able to sink. It's extremely tough and it's low stretch. Fluorocarbon, because of the processes, is actually more expensive to use than monofilament or braid. So it's the most expensive fishing line that you can use. But the reason behind that is that it has properties that the other two don't have, and that it actually has a high refractive index, which means that in science terms, it's invisible to a fish. It has properties that you can actually use that in clear water situations, is what I used to mainly use it in back in the day on those Arkansas, Ozark kind of clear water impoundments is what I used to fish. And I used to use straight fluorocarbon spooled up a lot of the time. But the problem is that it absorbs memory over time, and with it being more expensive, it was tougher to go to the store every couple fishing trips and get more fluorocarbon because it got so expensive. But fluorocarbon is an awesome way to go. Braid. Braid is made from woven fibers, and it has very little stretch. It's about 1/3 to 1/4 the size smaller than mono or fluoro. So whenever you're spooling up a reel with braid, then you can actually get more line on your reel than you can compared to the other two. It has less memory, and it often exceeds its breaking strength. And personally, from my perspective, using braid, I can get super long casts out of it, and I can actually get further casts than I can with mono or fluoro. And this stuff, I've basically gone to braid as my go-to line. I more typically tie on a leader to most of my lures using fluorocarbon or mono, specifically whichever way that I'm going to be fishing. So with me tying up braid mainly, I am actually using it with top waters like walking baits or moving baits. I can use braid with moving baits any of the time. That's what I mainly use because it is so abrasive. It has so much strength. It's just, it does not break off like it does with mono or fluoro. Mono or fluoro will just snap. Braid does not usually just snap. I have cases where I've bird nested and lost lures at the end of it whenever it bird nests with braid, but that very rarely happens. But the lures that I mainly use mono with, I'll use top waters to get that float on those lures, like walking baits or poppers or anything like that. I'll use monofilament. With fluorocarbon, I'll use it with crankbaits or jerkbaits. And the reason with crankbaits is, say you're wanting to get a crankbait down to a certain depth. It's a 15-foot runner. At the furthest depth that crankbait is going to be at, depending upon what line size you have with that fluorocarbon, which is usually around 12 to 14, somewhere in that range, you want to use that fluorocarbon to get that bait down there. And with a jerk bait, sometimes you've got a jerk bait that is on the pause and it just floats up a little too quickly for your taste. You tie on some fluorocarbon with that jerk bait and you can actually decrease the rate that it's actually going to the surface and get it more close to a suspend. And Braid, like I said, I use it mainly with all my moving baits, a lot of stuff, and whenever I'm in muddy water, I don't use mono or fluoro at all really, unless I'm trying to get a certain action out of a bait. So Braid is my go-to, and it saved me a lot of money doing it that way. It lasts longer. There's so many positives to Braid, and you should definitely try it out. But if you're wanting to just get beginning into fishing or whatnot, then monofilament is probably your way to go, because fluorocarbon can be so expensive over time. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on what kind of line you like to use, what kind of leaders, just everything that goes along with line and your experiences. And subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.